Ladies and gentlemen, welcome into my official top 10 weirdest MLB stadiums. There are no rules when it comes to this list. If you hosted an MLB team at all, like just for 1 year even, you could appear on here. There's a lot of quirky stuff that happened back when the MLB was expanding. You had teams playing at temporary homes that got demolished within 3 or 4 years. Some pretty crazy stuff. So guys, when it comes to my top 10, let's get right into it, starting at number 10, and it is Mile High Stadium, which was used for 2 years. The Colorado Rockies come to town. They're building Coors Field. They got to get a place to play. And you can see it was a multi-purpose stadium. The craziest thing about this one, they set the attendance record, averaging 56,000 fans per game. And you can just see how ridiculous the stadium is, especially for baseball. It's 3 decks. And then the way it worked for the MLB to actually have a baseball field, there was a detachment that happened with the left field stands, and they would get pushed back from where, when the Denver Broncos were playing, the multi-purpose aspect of it, they would move, detach the left stands, and push them back, and it just looks pretty inorganic, but just crazy walls of seating. Right field is hilarious. It's just a giant gouge of bleacher seating. But yeah, they averaged 56,000 fans, one of the more unique ballparks, even if it only just lasted a few years. When the Rockies came out there was so much demand and such a huge market. It created a new MLB attendance record with over 3 million fans in a single season. At number 9, it is Sick's Stadium, which was used for the Seattle Pilots 1 season in 1969. This has an argument to be the worst MLB facility to host a team at all. There were so many problems with this stadium. They were waiting for the Kingdome to get ready. You couldn't even shower in the locker rooms. You can see the capacity is really low. The idea was for the stadium to expand to 30,000 seats by the start of the 1969 season. However, due to cost issues, poor weather, and other delays, only 17,000 seats were ready by opening day. And several people that showed up to opening day had to wait 3 innings to take their seats because workers were installing them. During the game, they were having their seats installed. They had bought tickets to a seat that doesn't exist yet. And you go to the game on opening day in 1969, and your seat is being drilled into the stands. Oh my goodness. And then they had problems with the locker rooms. The opposing team announcers couldn't see third base. They had to use reflective mirrors. Just a horrible stadium. It was only a 1-year thing. I was looking and it said the Cleveland Indians were considering moving to Seattle, but their owner decided against it due to this stadium and how undesirable it was. Even if it was just 1 year before they would move out of it, that's what it ended up being. Certainly one of the weirdest stadiums, looks like a minor league. Honestly, worse than a minor league facility, especially modern day minor league parks. Probably worse than a lot of elementary school fields, honestly. Coming in at number 8, it is Jari Park, home of the Montreal Expos. When they became a thing before Olympic Stadium was built, they played there for 7 years. And the best thing about this stadium is the random pool out about 550 feet away, out there in right field, beyond right field. That is just really weird and strange. And then the other thing about this stadium, it has since been turned into a tennis complex. But when it was announced that Montreal was getting a team, they had more stands put up. They expanded the capacity. And I'm surprised this thing even made it 7 seasons. I mean, just looking at it, it's completely bare bones, but you got to do what you got to do. This is where the Expos played. You take a look at AT&T Stadium built in McCovey Cove. They got that idea, believe it or not, from this stadium. Amazing. No, I'm just kidding. I just made that up. But Either way, this stadium got turned into a little tennis complex. You can see it right there. Still looks pretty disheveled, honestly, but that's what it is at this point. Look at the home plate. You can still see the home plate area, the curve. That's a little league design there. Coming in at number 7, it is the Metrodome. So the weird thing about the Metrodome is it was a fixed roof dome structure, but it was also multi-purpose, and it was multi-purpose in a way. It was not like the Kingdome. You know, it was not like anything with a big circle design. It actually felt like it had some character. They did do a decent job bringing the apron around the upper deck to limit some of the seating there. The seating out in right center field being pushed up into that wall formation, that's an unfortunate little quirk of it. And then the other thing I recently looked at when I was looking up photos, behind home plate, that is a brutal design. I mean, that's what you get with multi-purpose, though. You got like a little wall there. It's just not custom fit because it is an NFL stadium. They had some nice like designs in the grass there. The artificial turf. I don't know why I like that circle thing. I think it looks nice, but yeah, obviously you can't play on a field surface like that nowadays. The Metrodome did get a new roof that allowed some natural light to see through, but that was not until after Minnesota went to Target Field. At number 6, it's going to be Exhibition Stadium. Yes, Exhibition Stadium, home of the Toronto Blue Jays for 12 seasons, and we know one of the worst stadiums in all of baseball. It was a multi-purpose stadium, if you want to call it. I mean, this thing, it didn't move. So at least with multi-purpose stadiums, they're either built in a way to be a multi-purpose stadium like the cookie cutters with the circle design, or they have seats that swivel and move like Mile High Stadium, the Metrodome pushing seats up. You've got, Oakland Coliseum moving all their seats. This thing didn't do anything. The seats just stayed there, and they put in an MLB stadium on top of a football field. So I guess that's something that you can do, but you are going to be regarded as one of the worst stadiums in the MLB, and just a really weird situation there with Exhibition Stadium. It comes in at number 6. At number 5, it has to be the Polo Grounds. Of course, it was going to come up on this list. The bathtub, the crazy design. I tried to find some good in-color shots about the Polo Grounds, and I came across one. This one image always gets me at just how there was just nothing to these stadiums. I mean, you can see right through in between the first and second decks, the concourse. You can just see right through it. There was just nothing to these stadiums back in the day. And look at like the apartment buildings or whatever that is. But yeah, Polo Grounds is on here for obvious reasons. The center field construction, the ridiculously short lines, right field, left field. It would nothing. I don't even think you can have a stadium like this today. No, you can't. There are dimension rules that will limit that. But the bathtub has to appear on this list. It comes in at number 5 in the weirdest stadiums. At number 4, it is the Baker Bowl. So the unique fact about the Baker Bowl, it had a higher wall, significantly higher wall than Fenway Park out in right field. It was a very old stadium. It became known as the Baker Wall and was 60 feet high. In comparison, Fenway Park is 37 feet. So that's a bit of an overkill. Fenway Park, we think about how crazy the Green Monster is, 37 feet versus almost double that. And of course, it was extremely shallow down the line, 280. And then it was 408 to dead center with a crevice in left center that extended to about 420 feet. It closed in 1938. Moving on down to number 3, it's Colt Stadium. This stadium was built to be demolished. It opened in 1962, it closed in 1964, and it was demolished in the 70s, and its spare parts were shipped off to Mexico. The construction cost $2 million. So this thing temporary with the Astrodome being built. You can see the Astrodome in the distance in virtually every photo of it being constructed, because this thing only lasted 3 years and cost in today's dollars around $20 million for an MLB stadium for 3 years. That is pretty remarkable. There wasn't much to it. It was ridiculously hot. You know, it's the same reason that the former Rangers ballpark, which wasn't very old, didn't last. If you're in Texas during the summer, it is impossible to play day games if you do not have a roof, a retractable roof, a dome, whatever it is. You need it. You need the air conditioning. And they had some really bad attendance during the Houston Colt 45s, which is what they were called at the time, during their 3-year stint at it. But there's really not much to the stadium other than really, really low in terms of luxury for the MLB, even at that time, just because it was a temporary home. Pretty low seating, but it did have a capacity of 33K, believe it or not, even though there was no real second deck to it. It was just kind of a big wall of seating, and then they constructed more seating in the outfield. At number 2, it is the LA Memorial Coliseum, which temporarily hosted MLB action for a few years, and then they went back in, I believe, 2009 for a little spring training game. I would love to see them do that again. It would be really, really cool with the left field. You got to put up the net because it's so short. And then they have the temporary wall out in right field. This is kind of the same thing as Exhibition Stadium, to where the seating does not move. And you just kind of have to put up a temporary wall. And obviously the Coliseum, even when it hosted MLB action for the few years, far too big for an MLB stadium. More times than not, you're staring at a giant wall of empty seats, but it comes in at number 2. Just the dimensions of it, the capacity, it comes in at number 2 on the weirdest stadiums. And then at number 1, it is Wrigley Field, LA. So yes, they built a Wrigley Field lookalike located in Los Angeles that mainly hosted minor league baseball, but it also did host the Angels for a season. And just looking at it, I mean, you can kind of see a similar design. There were actual renovation plans for the Wrigley Field LA if it came to that, and the renovation does kind of look a little bit similar to Wrigley Field in Chicago. The interior of it, you can kind of see the upper deck with a similar formation. It's got a little bit different, maybe bigger of a roof. But yes, Wrigley Field, LA, it's just so unique to see that a whole idea come about, because we're so used to Wrigley Field being in Chicago in the Central Time Zone. To see it in the West Coast, or at least a variation of it with palm trees. It's a 2-deck approach. Again, they would have had to expand the outfield seating. They would have had to have bought more land out there in that neighborhood if they wanted to do an expansion. Also, the little exterior on each side is really ugly. I don't know what they were thinking with that. It looks like an unfinished house. Does it not? That is really bad. But I mean, this is way back when, so either way, that is Wrigley Field, LA. Just an interesting, unique quirk, and it mainly only hosted minor league action. You look at this stadium, and you would think, back in the day, this very easily could have been the home for an MLB team, and maybe even became a legendary MLB stadium. If it came to that, where they could expand it and stuff and change things around like Wrigley Field in Chicago, but it didn't end up happening. Either way, guys, that is going to do it for this video. The 10 weirdest MLB stadiums. Make sure you're following me on Twitter. Link to that's always in the description.